What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and we've got our Week 3 recap from the SEC. We had some conference games this week, some pretty good games. It was kind of a crazy week in the SEC, but what we've really learned is maybe the SEC hasn't really changed from last year. Alabama still is Alabama, and LSU we thought was going to be so good. Well, LSU got blown out by Mississippi State. Florida and Tennessee both just don't look that good. And so it's kind of disappointing. I really thought that the SEC would have a big year this year. I thought that they would kind of bounce back and take that top spot, that top conference back in college football. But that does not look like that's going to be the case based off of what we have seen so far. But still a long season, long ways to go. Let's go ahead and look at these games from last week. And we're going to go game by game, starting with Louisiana at Texas A&M. This game was 21-14, Louisiana at halftime. Yes, that's right, Texas A&M was down in this game, but really they stepped it up and played very well in that second half. Kellen Mond actually, looked like a good quarterback in that second half. And Texas A&M, you have to wonder, is that going to be some momentum that they're able to carry over? Or is it the first half team? Is that what they're going to be going forward? So still a lot of questions about this Texas A&M team. And if they can play like they played in that second half, maybe they could go back to being an actual threat in the SEC West. How about probably the best game of the weekend, without a doubt, was Tennessee and Florida. First half, neither offense could do anything, and then it just kind of got crazy late in that second half. Back and forth we went, and then the Hail Mary for Florida to win the football game. That was just an insane play. It was karma, I guess. Tennessee beat Georgia on something sort of similar last season, so maybe that's what that was. I don't know, but big win for Florida. Still a lot of question marks for both of these teams, but yeah, it's still a little early to tell if either of these teams is going to be able to contend with Georgia there in the East. Mercer and Auburn. Auburn wins this one 24-10, and I will talk about this one a little bit more in depth. I know a lot of my subscribers are Auburn fans, and you all know that I am. And it seems like everybody's ready to fire Gus Malzahn. The offense is terrible, and that's all I keep hearing is that this was just an embarrassing performance and all that. Well, I actually thought that there was a lot of good out of this game. I mean, you have 5 turnovers, and you're going to struggle. That's just the way it is. You can't expect this team to have 5 turnovers probably in another game all year, and if they do, they'll lose to an SEC opponent. But the offense really got going. Jarrett Stidham was really good in this game. I think it was like 31 or 36 or something like that. The offense had over 500 yards. They only had to punt the ball twice. It was the turnovers that really cost them. They missed a short field goal, which was very strange for Daniel Carlson. But I like that the play calling was different. They threw a lot of shorter passes. Stidham did a good job getting the ball out of his hands quicker. And I think they really learned from that Clemson game. I saw improvements. Now, obviously, you cannot have those turnovers. If you're going to do that, this team has no chance to get anywhere. And I don't know if Auburn is an actual contender in the West, but I still think they're a really solid team. And if that offense can continue to get better and they can take care of the football, then I think this team could be really good. They're actually the number 2 defense in the country right now, so that's pretty impressive there on the defensive side of the ball. And again, just get that offense going a little bit more, and I think they'll be able to play with anybody in college football. And look, they only lost to Clemson by 8 points, and Clemson went out and just embarrassed Louisville. So, hey, maybe Auburn is all right after all. They'll have a big test coming up. Well, they go on the road to Missouri, and then it's a big one against Mississippi State. And that's when we'll really find out about this Auburn team. So let's go on now to that Missouri team we were just talking about. It's bad. I mean, it is bad for Missouri. They lose to Purdue 35-3 at home. Look at the time of possession there. Purdue, 43 minutes to 16 minutes. Missouri's offense, we thought they were going to be really good the way they started the season, but now the offense can't even get going. The defense is horrible. We knew they were horrible. And overall, this Missouri team is just not good at all right now. So it's bad news there for Missouri. They've got a lot of improvement to do. And maybe they're the worst team in the SEC. All right, Alabama, not a huge blowout over Colorado State. They win at 41-23. It was a 7-point game before Alabama scored right before the half to open it back up to 14. It was never really any doubt, as to who was going to win this football game. You knew Alabama was going to win. Colorado State's not a bad team. They're not a great team, but they're a pretty solid group of 5 team. So I didn't expect this one to be a huge blowout. 23 points, though. This Alabama defense, I was looking at the stats. They're ranked number 37 in the country right now. And that's just not what you'd expect out of Alabama. So that is a little concerning. And because they haven't played anybody great offensively. Florida State pretty good, but other than that. LSU, Mississippi State, this one was a blowout. Mississippi State took it to them, and we get the same old story with LSU. They just didn't have a passing game in this one, and it just looks like the same LSU team that we saw last year. But Mississippi State, I tell you what, they are looking like a dangerous team right now, as they have won all 3 of their games very convincingly. So we'll see if they can keep it going. They got a big one against Georgia coming up this weekend. In what now looks to be a huge game in the SEC. Speaking of Georgia, they beat Sanford 42-14. Fromm passed for 165 yards, 3 touchdowns. Obviously, Georgia was going to win this game by a lot. Giving up 14 points to an FCS opponent, that has to worry you just a little bit. But, the starters aren't going to play the whole game and stuff like that. So, Not really any concern there. Georgia, again, that game against Mississippi State this weekend is going to be huge, and it's going to really tell us a lot about those 2 teams. So let's go on to the next game. We had an upset on Saturday night. It was Kentucky going into South Carolina and knocking them off 23-13. And you know what? South Carolina just beat themselves in this game. They missed field goals. They couldn't convert on 4th down. When they were going for it on 4th down, they had some key penalties. They really just beat themselves. Deebo Samuel got injured this game. He left the game. So I still think South Carolina is pretty good if they can clean things up. But Kentucky is looking like they're on a roll right now. They're 3-0. They win this game by 10 points on the road, and I think they got a real shot at home against Florida next week. That's going to be a fun one. One of the better games in the SEC coming up this weekend. And then we got Kansas State on the road at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, a huge win. 14-7, they take down the Wildcats. Vanderbilt right now is the number 1 overall defense in all of college football. Yes, that is right. They are number 1. They limit to Kansas State to 76 passing yards. They are just getting it done on that side of the football. And it's going to be an interesting game against Alabama this weekend. Seeing those 2 defenses match up. I think it'll be pretty close. I think it'll be low scoring. And we'll find out a lot more about this Vanderbilt team. See if they're, a for real team in the SEC. The late game here was Ole Miss at Cal. Cal wins at 27-16. Patterson threw for a lot of yards, but I think he had 3 interceptions in this game as well. And in the end, Ole Miss still has a lot of issues. Their defense has not played well at all through 3 games. Patterson is, breaking records. He looks like one of the best quarterbacks in college football, but he can't do it alone. They have no run game. Defense is not very good. So, it's not going too good for Ole Miss right now as they lose this one by 11 points. So let's look at the updated standings. We now have Kentucky and Florida both at 1-0. South Carolina 1-1. Tennessee and Missouri 0-1. Georgia and Vanderbilt have not played an SEC game just yet. Let's see here. If you look at the overall points for Tennessee, leads in points. Points against, look at that. Missouri's given up 109 points compared to Vanderbilt, who's given up 13. That's right. 13 points is all that Vanderbilt has given up. I told you this defense is for real. And they played Middle Tennessee. That's a pretty good team there. Pretty good offense. The other game was against Alabama and A&M, though. Let's flip over to the West. Mississippi State 1-0. LSU 0-1. That's the only conference games here in the West. Let's see. The best offenses have been Mississippi State. They scored 143 points, which 2 of their games were cupcake games. Well, Louisiana Tech is not a bad team, but Auburn, LSU, and Arkansas really struggling on the offensive side. Arkansas especially, 56 points, which they've only played 2 games, so that's part of that. And on the defensive side of the ball, look at that. Auburn has only given up 31 points. Alabama only given up 40. Mississippi State's only given up 28. So you're seeing some good defenses out there in the West. Texas A&M and Ole Miss maybe not so much, but everybody else, seems to be playing pretty good defense in the West based off of these numbers. So it's going to be an interesting race to see if anybody can compete with Alabama. As of right now, I would say probably not. I think Auburn maybe has a chance, and Mississippi State does get Alabama at home. We're going to find out again. Like I said, we're going to find out if Mississippi State is for real this weekend when they play Georgia. If they win that game, you're going to have to really start looking at this Mississippi State team, which is a bit of a surprise to me. I knew Fitzgerald would be one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, but they're getting it done across the board at Mississippi State. And I was just really, really impressed with that win over LSU. They just went in there and blew them out. So we'll find out this Saturday, Mississippi State and Georgia. I think that's the game of the week. CBS chose to do the Alabama-Vanderbilt game, which they like to do Alabama anytime they can. So that's probably the only reason they did that. And they probably weren't anticipating Mississippi State beating LSU either. So, maybe if they had known that Mississippi State was going to win that game, they would have went to the Georgia-Mississippi State game. So that's it for week 3 in the SEC. We'll have our power rankings later today and our week 4 preview for the SEC as we're going to take a look at all of the games coming up this weekend in the SEC. So that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports YouTube channel.